All right, everyone. Welcome back to Keeping Up with the Chaldeans. I'm your host, Omar Binno, and along with my co-host, Anthony Toma. Today, we've got Stephanie Nofar. She works with Hope and Counseling. It is her own business out of Sterling Heights. Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. You'd like to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of information about it for the audience?
So my name is Stephanie Nofar. I'm the owner of Hope and Counseling. It is in Sterling Heights. We started about almost 5 years ago now. And I'm a licensed professional counselor. I also am a certified advanced alcohol and drug counselor. So I do specialize in addictions. At our location, we have 4 other therapists that do a lot of other things. We have a child therapist. We have a male therapist who mostly sees like younger males because a teenage boy does not want to talk to a woman
Yeah, right.
About anything. So, I'm married. I have a son who is almost 2 and crazy.
Beautiful.
And
God bless.
you.
Boys will be boys.
Oh,
yes, definitely. But I love it. It's great. I love what I do. I love helping others. I love just being that like voice of reason sometimes that people need.
So you'd be the person like once I call it, and then I've talked about it with my brother and I and stuff like that, stress and anything from depression, or let's just like we were saying earlier, somebody who implodes and goes through the breakdown, or even do they come to you pre that, like the ramp up to that? I mean,
Sometimes I think that in our community, it's getting to be a little less stigmatic, like where people are willing to come to counseling before it gets to the point of like, oh my gosh, I can't take it anymore.
Sure.
But we see pretty much anything. I mean, it could be like school stress, work stress. It could be like anxiety, depression, grief and loss. We see a lot of. I used to work for Eastwood Clinics, and they had a grant through like the Chaldean Community Foundation for like people who had just come back from Iraq and had a lot of trauma. I see a lot of addictions, obviously. I see adolescents and adults. I don't see children.
You're saying like your institution doesn't actually handle children? Or
they do. I just have another therapist that does that. Like
okay.
She does
So you
child
personally...
therapy. Yeah, I just don't
Okay.
personally do it. But I see a lot of teens. I recently had like a teen self-esteem workshop.
Okay.
Any
reason, or is there a difference that you don't go with?
Yes.
Okay.
It's really hard. It's honestly, it's just, I love kids.
Sure.
I don't like to work with them because it's just so difficult.
Okay.
Because you have to really know like their development stages. You have to know just so much. And we have a therapist at our office who worked in like schools for like 25 years. So she is so well versed with kids and what they're going through and how to get to them. She does a lot of play therapy. I do mostly talk therapy. You know, I include a few activities with teens and things like that, but for the most part, it's talk.
Talk a little bit about you said the teen self-esteem workshop. Talk a little bit about that.
So I did that recently. We had about 10 teens, not necessarily Chaldean. We had a few and we were trying to focus on all their positive attributes and what makes them have low self-esteem. So all the different factors that have caused them to feel this way throughout the years, throughout their life.
Right.
What are some of those things for girls?
A lot of it is like parents, unfortunately. I'm a parent and I know how hard that could be. But we just never know how much our words or our actions or even our relationships with, whether it's, marriages or outside relationships, how much they affect, especially girls. Because I think girls just handle everything so much more emotionally and we process things emotionally. So, we always say, like, you can say 10 really good things about a woman. If you say one negative one, she's going to remember that negative one.
Different chromosomes.
Yeah.
So how do we as Chaldean parents stay out of our teens' ways without
enabling
not
them.
parent? Yeah.
I always say that I think it's really important to be a parent and not a friend, but I think that it's super important to be positive with them. If they do something wrong, to find a positive way of showing them the right way. You know, instead of saying like, you shouldn't do this, let's talk about why you are doing that and what effects it can have on you. And I just want you to be this amazing woman instead of like, don't do that. You're, you know, this and this is going to happen to you, or you're going to have this kind of reputation. It's like, no, you're just this beautiful woman. And I don't want you to, you know, fall into the wrong crowd or things like that. And so just being a lot more positive and finding like the backdoor way of handling certain situations.
On our end, we'd have a shotgun in the closet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's that, you know what I'm saying? So,
it's hard.
So we're only a generation away from, or generation past the na'ala.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we, and our girls, you know, and family and friends, they all grew up okay. So how do you
define okay?
Yeah, that was going to say. I wanted to hear what your side.
Define okay, because I think that, I mean, like myself included, I think that a lot of like my generation of women do have a lot of self-esteem issues.
Sure.
And I think that is like it's like the base of a lot of other issues that we end up having. And so I think it comes from society. I think right now social media is killing our girls.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because we have no idea what an actual model looks like.
No,
and what that means. Yeah. And the expectations, and no one is going to post their worst picture online.
Right.
Nobody.
No.
And so people are only seeing the good out of every other person.
Selena Gomez has done it.
Yeah, thankfully. And we are having a lot more celebrities come out with stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I even did a couple years back, we did like a, you know, everyone had like the ice bucket challenge. We did like a no filter, no makeup challenge.
Oh, cool.
And a lot of people did it. Not many Chaldeans did.
What was the hashtag?
I don't remember. It
No.
was a couple years
Nike
back.
did something too in regards to what you're saying to help out women, especially with sports. From all the, you know, beautiful women coming out that had their six packs, had the nice sport bra, and then the perfect physique coming in with those tights. That wasn't every situation coming out. So they changed that expectation so women can be a little bit over the standard weight, or you know, what have you. Just doesn't have to be that ideal Coca-Cola bottle, you know, coming
absolutely.
out. So it's good. So I have a question for you, because it takes a lot of strength to deal with this stuff. So when you went through college for this, was this your first expectation to want to get into this hope, you know, in counseling, or was there any other things you had in mind in your career before you jumped into this?
So I was a paralegal for about 12 years. I went to law school. I went to Cooley, and while I was there, I was in my first year, and I realized like this was just not for me, not at all. And I left law school, and I was still working at law firms. I was actually working in law firms even when I started my business, because, and unfortunately back then, insurance companies took up to 90 days to pay you.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for money? So I had to I had to capitalize on what I did know and do that. So I worked at law firms up until a couple years ago. But I had to think back on what really gave me a lot of joy, and that was I started a retreat for high school girls, and back in 2005.
What's the name
called?
Walk with Jesus. And so I was a director of that retreat for, I don't know, 12, 13 years.
What side of town? Where did you gather?
It was through Mar Ede, so it was in Oak Park. And, you know, we did that once a year, sometimes twice a year. We took about 24 to 30 girls with us every year.
God bless you.
And it was amazing. I loved it, as crazy as it was, and as like no sleep that we get, because they think it's like a huge slumber party.
Right.
And, you know, it took a lot of work because it was like a 4-day retreat.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that and how much joy it gave me, and I had to find a way to make at least a little bit of money. Nobody goes into counseling or social work for the money, I will say that.
Right.
But I had to find something that was going to at least pay my bills. And so I left law school, and I got my master's degree in counseling through U of D.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then
Great school.
from there, I met some people, like I met a friend through like all of my classes who was working in a residential treatment center in Detroit. And she was able to get me in to do like outpatient therapy there. And there it was like culture shock, you know, it was the worst of the worst. It was like the hardest population. I started doing like addictions counseling. And once if I could handle that clientele, I knew I can go anywhere, especially Macomb County, Oakland County. Like, it was nothing in comparison. I was even doing like in-home counseling in Detroit. Don't ask me why, but when you're desperate for a job, when you first start out, you do whatever you got to do. And so once that was on my resume, I mean, there was nothing I couldn't do.
That's nice.
That's awesome.
And so Hope and Counseling has been effective for 5 years now?
Yeah, like fully functioning.
Okay, that's great. And people can find you in Sterling Heights for the center. So how does this work? Is it insurance-based that they got to reach out to you, or can I walk into you with just standard condition?
Yeah, you can walk in. So we do like online scheduling, which honestly is like the best thing ever.
Okay.
I feel like
Apple.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I feel like right now I'm the type of person where if I can schedule something online, you better believe I'm going to that place.
Right.
Yeah.
It just makes things a little bit easier, because I think it's really difficult for people even to make that phone call or to make that step. And I commend people when they do. Like, honestly, it's such a hard thing to even like finally just take that step.
Yeah.
So, you know, we go through a lot of insurances. I take almost every insurance. I think there are just a few Medicaids that we don't. And the thing that like I feel like I've been blessed with, my husband has always told me like not to turn people away. He was like, you know, this thing that you're creating, like, I want it to stand out for you, and I know how hard you worked on it. And
who's your husband, by the way?
His name is Chris Nofar. He is
Nice.
He's a doctor at St. Joseph Mercy.
Good.
And so he always says, you know, this is what you're here for. And so we do like a sliding fee for anyone that can't afford it. We literally don't turn people away.
That's
My
great.
secretary probably yells at me more because she's like, don't write this off. Like, I'm sure that they can pay. I'm like, if they can't, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. We take a lot of referrals from churches. Like, a lot of the priests I know, like, just personally through
Our community, or do you
Yeah.
also do outside of our community?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Great.
So I actually did a talk at a youth camp for like a Lebanese Maronite church. I've done a lot of talks at like CLC, Haven, at Holy Martyrs. I did like the War Room. I honestly, anytime someone gives me a platform to talk about it and to like get this like stigma completely out of our community, I will take it, because way too many people are dying of overdoses. Way too many people are
Didn't we just have a recent suicide
yes,
recently?
a couple
I think
days ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Within
know,
our
and it's
community.
just
That's tough.
that just it like honestly breaks my heart, because I just know like how much of an impact like counseling can be, like psychology, like taking medications. I know a lot of people are very like anti-medications. We're not telling you as soon as you walk into the door that, you know, we're going to refer you to a psychiatrist.
Right.
But if, you know, something is physiologically wrong with us, if we had the flu, would we try to fight it ourselves?
If you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
If you feel there's natural remedies of doing it. But at the end of the day, to what you're saying is that's based upon also the body's receptors.
Absolutely.
You know, the receptors are a huge thing that have to involve with your addiction process and the traits of it within your genes.
Absolutely.
So if and I know because one of the members in our community lost her son to overdose, and good friends with their family, and she said we even had something done, I don't recall what it was, something done to the receptor where the doctor that was out of Henry Ford, I believe, or Beaumont, he was talking about that you can remove the receptors or do something to that receptor to kind of null it, to not make the craving be there.
Yeah.
So it kind of blocks it. But like, and that kind of touches on what I want to ask you, based upon stats that they give out. These are numbers based upon 3 million cases per year in the depression, which leads a lot of times to either drugs or suicide. Toddlers, it says it's very rare from 3 to 5 years. You have children 6 to 13 years. It says it says common. What jumps up and becomes scary is, which is where the suicide rate starts to increase, is from 14 to 18 years is very common. 19 to 40 very, 41 to 60, and 60 plus all falls under very common. But this
Very common what?
Depression.
Okay.
It's in 3 million cases in the U.S. is what they took the studies off of, and that's what they've got in on the ages affected by that number. So
if you think about it, with teenagers, they're experiencing so many new things with their bodies, with their lives. They're transitioning into like different things in school. They have to plan for their future.
Right.
That's really stressful.
A lot of anxiety
and
there.
so and it's hard to tell someone like it's going to be okay. Okay,
Yeah.
then I just won't have depression or I won't have anxiety, and so they also are at an age where they don't really have a lot of coping mechanisms because they're just starting to have all of these stresses.
Not developed yet.
They went from playing in the backyard to, oh my gosh, I have to plan for college.
And whose group am I in?
Exactly.
How come those
Absolutely.
people get to do all the fun stuff?
Yeah. So it's like a huge transition, and that's where you're going to find the most depression, and that accounts for every part of our life after that, because after you're done with high school, you're going to go into college. College is pretty stressful.
Oh, yeah.
And then changing, like majors, like on average, people change majors twice. That's not easy.
Right.
And then you get out of college and you're looking for a job. There's another big transition. And then once you get a job and you have a career, then you're going to be looking for either like a family or traveling or whatever you decide to do in your life. So all of those transitions come with stress, and it's all about how we handle it.
It's crazy what she's saying. I had to see a therapist literally 6 years ago this week. The reason I know that is because it was a close person in my family had passed away, an aunt, and it was like the underlying issue had to come out from everything past that I had gone through. So when I went to go see her, she explained something to me that I never understood, but the way she did, she said, us as human beings, we go through losses that are equated to death multiple times over. We go from being home kids to jumping to kindergarten. Our ties with mom is gone.
Yep.
Go from your grade school to your high school. Your ties between everybody you earned from 1st to 8th is gone.
And your comfort
so
zone
forth.
is gone.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like that you keep losing things in life, and a lot of that can equate to people going through depression because they keep thinking back, and you never get what you had. Once it's gone, it's gone.
What are some of the sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
What are some of the signs that a parent should be looking for at certain ages, So
as like your child is like getting into like the teenage years, they're going to be going through hormonal changes. So it's going to be hard. I always tell parents to err on the side of caution, because you're going to have teens that are going to be like angry and behaviorally like acting out. And so you don't know if they say, well, I want to kill myself. Oh, they're just angry.
Right.
I tell parents, angry or not, take them to the hospital. Because do you want to take the chance?
Really?
Do you want to take the chance with your child's life?
And what's the hospital going to do?
So they'll
They're
at
gonna
least
commit
assess them. No, they'll hold them for at least 24 hours just to watch them,
Okay.
talk to them. They'll send a social worker in. They'll talk to them about like what's causing them to feel this way. If they feel like those threats are true, or if they're just out of anger. But I'm not willing to take that chance with my child. And I always tell people not to.
Do you want? I mean,
why you're saying that.
do you want to put that on them though? Like, wouldn't that just push them over the edge next time to just keep it to themselves and just?
Or it's going to keep them from not just saying it. I always tell people, if you mean it, like you don't say it unless you mean it. And so that will teach them as well, because then they see that the consequences of just saying it are that you may have to go to the hospital. So then it's going to be a more serious thing. So they won't say it unless
They're
they
really
truly mean
they're
it.
coming through with it.
And so, but, looking for signs and symptoms, like if they're
It's hard.
withdrawing, if they're just staying in their room all day long. And I get it. They're on their phones all day.
Yeah.
And so they might stay in their room a little bit. But getting them out, noticing their attitudes, noticing that, like, they're exhibiting some behaviors that are just not the norm. They're dressing kind of like either provocatively or maybe not at all. Like, you'll notice a lot of times, like with their phones, if they're trying to hide something, if, there's too many things that are just not adding up. Ask questions, talk to them, make sure that you're, trying to make sure that line of communication is open, so that if they are feeling that way, that they're not going to think that you're going to overreact.
So you as a parent, you as a counselor, I've got a question of both of you because I'm in neither one of your positions. Do you feel it right to get into your kids' phones?
Absolutely.
Like
My kids are too young right now, but yeah.
when you get to, when you get,
I
say
do it
at
all the time.
Yeah,
I mean,
when the iPads or when they're 10, 12 years old, if you actually hand them a phone, are you going to be the parent that will unlock it and go to see what's happening, or would you monitor it in some way?
absolutely, 100%.
And do you condone that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of course. You're talking about a kid. You're not talking about an adult.
No, I understand.
And
Just
kids
because
get mad. Kids get very upset, and they feel like they are owed some kind of privacy.
Yep.
But again, it's that like thin line between being their friend and being their parent. I would rather my child be alive and well than to have their privacy and not so alive and well.
We had an episode the other day where my daughter came out screaming out of the kitchen. She was on her iPad, and the reason was that she was playing a game, Roblox or something like that, and the one girl was holding a sign that said "unicorn for sale." So she said she traded her horse, fake horse obviously, for the unicorn, and the girl's riding the pony in front of her.
Yeah.
And I think it was like $20 or something like that. She went crazy, and we're like, let that be a lesson to you. Don't trust anyone online. And that was for $20, that was a $1 million message.
Yeah. Small drop in the
Great.
bucket came effective. You know what I'm saying? It's great. Let me ask you this in regards to your Hope and Counseling. What was the push to get you going and started in there? That you began that, and was there a heavy cost involved? Did you need to have a source to help you out to get you going? And then where's your growth in this company, along with how do you market yourself so people can find you?
So the push to have my own clinic was, one, if you work for another practice, you have no say in terms of if someone comes to me and can't afford therapy, if that clinic doesn't allow me to see them, I don't see them, because a lot of therapists work by percentages. So whatever a therapist brings in, they get a percentage and the owner gets a percentage.
Sure.
And so I was working for clinics that were taking 50% of my pay, and I had no say in anything. But what they were providing me was referrals, an office, a secretary, things like that.
It's a good launching pad.
Yeah, absolutely. But it did bother me that I didn't really have a say in a lot of things. And I guess maybe that's just me being type A, but
that's great.
Okay though.
And everything that I was doing within the church and the community made me feel like there's got to be something bigger. There had to have been something bigger for me to do. And I don't even know how we did it, but my husband had just gotten married, and he just started a residency. So we all know how much residents make.
Yeah.
And we had bought a house and all of that. And it just so happened that one of his relatives said, hey, if you really want to do this, I have some office space if you want. At the time, I was working from home for Humana, and I was working for their behavioral health program. And so I was talking to people over the phone. So I was like, well, what if I just move my entire office to this office, and during my breaks I'll see clients, and after I sign out, I'll see more clients. That way I don't have to drive and waste time. And so I'd be there from 9 a.m. till maybe 9 p.m., but I'd see maybe 4 or 5 clients. I would see 4 or 5 clients that day, and every day it would just keep growing. I'd literally have my whole setup for my other job in one corner, and then I'd have my couches and he, thankfully, he gave me the office space, and he let me stay there for about, I think, 6 months for free.
You want to shout him out?
Yeah, Neville Nofar. He is the owner of Great Northern Insurance.
Nice.
And so,
Great
and
work,
he does
brother.
a lot of stuff too. He does some home health care, he does insurance. And so he just gave me this little office, not even little, it was actually pretty big. And I stayed there for about 6 months until I could get my, feet on the ground. I ended up leaving Humana. And when I got busy enough to just take on my own clients, there was that transition of well, I have enough clients where I can quit, but I don't have enough clients to fully get paid.
Yeah.
So I literally started to work at a law firm right down the street from here, part-time. I would just go there maybe 2 or 3 days for 4 or 5 hours. The guy paid me really well. And again, just capitalizing on the skills I knew I had and I could get paid really well for, until insurance companies started to pay us, and, we started to get on solid ground. Then it was I needed a secretary, because then I was in sessions all day and I couldn't answer the phones. So then I started to look into that, and a friend of mine, her sister, started to work for me, and she's been with me pretty much for the long haul now.
Great.
She runs it. She runs it.
You got expansions in mind, and
so I started with one little office. So we ended up moving from that office to where we are now, and now we have 4 other therapists there. myself and then my secretary, and we do groups there, and we do pretty much everything. I had to furnish 4 offices. I had to, I started with like going to like Grace Centers of Hope because they're like a recovery, like they really try to encourage recovery. And so I would buy furniture from there and couches and tables and lamps. And, I'd start with one office, and then like I'd start with another one, and I'd upgrade the other one. And, like just little by little, I had like a little Keurig in my lobby and, a little like flat desk. And now I got like a secretary's desk and, like just little
Growth.
by little.
Big shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but growth though. She's great.
So we started little, and then we've grown from there. And now we want to even grow even bigger because honestly, like there are weeks where I have like, especially evening appointments, I work from 10 until 8, sometimes till 9, depending on the client.
Or unless the show is on for the naughty.
Yeah, right. I leave early.
She does the naughty with Big O.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but I mean, people want evening appointments, and there have been times where someone is so desperate to get the help. And I remember I had a client who worked really far away, and she didn't leave work until 8 or 7, I think it was. And I was like, okay, well, I'll see you at 8 then. My son goes to sleep at 8:30. So I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's one day a week. I will see you until you're getting better, and then we'll like, we'll scatter your sessions out. And she said that made her a decision because not many people are willing to make those accommodations. We were there till 9 p.m.
Sure.
So, but evening appointments are really hard to come by right now because everyone wants them. Their teenagers or their kids have school, they have work. By the time they get to me, I have clients that come from like Farmington, from West Bloomfield.
Wow.
I have a guy that comes from Canton. To Sterling Heights, that's a hike. Heck of a drive.
How do they find you? Are you being referred? So that way we can let the audience know, like, what's the easiest way to find Stephanie and Hope and Clinic? Hope and Counseling, my apologies.
So a lot of people will find us on like Psychology Today. It's like a big hub, a directory that people will go on and just put in like their zip code, or if they're like depression or trauma or whatever it might be. And then they'll find kind of a list, and it kind of gives what we specialize in, a little like a little bio.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of referrals from that. We get a lot of referrals from the churches.
Okay.
Because the priests do know that we'll take anyone, no matter their financial situation. We've even had to do where like we've had phone conversations with people. We try to step in wherever we can. And so I have Chaldean therapists, and we have non-Chaldean therapists because a lot of Chaldeans don't feel comfortable with other Chaldean therapists.
Yeah.
Which my one thing about that is nobody's gossip is worth my license or my business. And I tell people that all the time, like it does not matter.
I think the same for your therapist as
Absolutely.
well. And they understand the ramifications of one's
confidentiality,
health putting stuff out.
And that's like the crux of our business, really, is confidentiality. And it's hard sometimes because we're all Chaldeans, so I might see a client out and about. I was in Israel and saw one of my clients there.
That's awesome.
Like, really? But, that's just what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Israel's therapeutic.
And my mom will sometimes tell me, like, oh, like I went on this bus trip and some lady said she's your client. I was like, who is that? She goes, you know her. She's your client. I was like, maybe she goes by a different name because I just don't know.
Wow.
So if someone wants to follow, the viewers want to find you directly, where do they go? How do they call you?
So hopeandcounseling.com, they can find us. They'll find our bios. They can schedule online. They'll have all of our email addresses. Social media, we're on Facebook a lot. We try to like post some like positive things throughout the day. And a lot of people follow us there. Believe it or not, like the Chaldean Moms page, people tag us all the time. We've gotten a lot of referrals through that. But yeah, like social media has been a big help.
She got a shout out from Mr. Bally yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Because he put an actual good post yesterday in regards to suicide and all this.
Oh,
other
you know
stuff.
what? I saw that. I liked all the.
So then I tagged her on there, and then he actually commended her and said, "I've heard her before. She speaks. She's very well." So that's.
So I try to go and do a lot of talks and things like that.
Do you have any talks coming up?
I actually don't. I'm like done for the time being.
Not till September.
Yeah, right. But I love doing all of that stuff. It's just it's a passion for me. Like people ask me all the time, like, oh, did you get ready for your talk? And I'm like, it just kind of comes to me when I'm there, and I think that is important too because it really is something that I truly love. And if I can even get one person to think outside of like, oh no, you would have to be in a white, strapped white coat if you go to counseling. That's what I'm here for.
Well, two things. If you can give some words of encouragement to the community, to somebody who may want to either work with you or do the same field as you, and then if you want to empower some of the women for what you're doing, but also a message to like the kids, adults, whoever may be teens that are going through any type of depression or thoughts, maybe give them something that can encourage them to stay alive more.
My advice is that get the help while you can. The worst that can happen is you get 45 minutes to an hour to yourself.
Yeah.
Like that is the worst that can happen. How often do we spend an hour just flipping through social media or going from one YouTube video to the next? Yeah. It's 1 hour that you can invest in yourself and your well-being and your life and your future. You can't really go wrong. And I tell people all the time, therapists don't take it personal. If they're not right for you, go to another one. Don't give up. Not everyone's going to be a match for you, just like doctors, just like lawyers, just like anybody.
Sure.
And so don't give up on that. And who cares what people think?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's your life, it's your future. Invest
your
in
health.
It. Absolutely. It's just like if we had cancer, we would go to the doctor. We would get treatment. Why is it any different when it comes to our mental health? Yeah. And I think one thing for parents to understand too is if your kids want to go to counseling, encourage them. Even if you don't understand it, even if you don't want them to, even if you feel like there's all the stigma about them, how would they ever get married if they went to counseling? Don't worry about that. Get them the help. You will regret it later if anything happens to them. Anything. And that could not just be suicide. It could be just the trauma and that follows you throughout your whole life and how much it holds you back. I do a lot of talks at like CLC and things, and I have a lot of girls that will come up to me and say like, I want to come to counseling, but I don't think my parents will let me. And that should never be an issue. We should always encourage our kids to do whatever it takes to make themselves better.
Hey, if parents want to keep their kids alive,
absolutely.
Push them for the
alive
not
and
just
happy.
alive, but
and happy,
being their best self.
Yeah.
Yes.
And living their best life. Like I think it's crazy when people like hashtag living their best life, but like in reality we're not.
Right.
Most of us are not.
No.
And so why not like dive deep into that and figure out what it is that's bothering you, what it is that's maybe triggering all these other feelings.
What are some of the maybe social channels or YouTube channels or somewhere online where kids can go and just get a little bit of advice and maybe a little bit more encouragement, some positive reinforcement? So
I would say like TED Talks. I really love the TED Talks about depression or anxiety. I've watched a lot of them. And
so they just go to
really
YouTube,
positive.
TED Talks, and
depression, anxiety, anything like that.
Okay.
I would say follow our Facebook page because we try to put on like a bunch of positive things and things just to think about.
And how do they find your Facebook page?
It's just Hope and Counseling.
Hope and Counseling. Okay.
Cool. We try to put things that make people think. I think we just posted something about how like 6-year-olds laugh like 150 times a day and adults laugh like 10 times a day. Like, let's all be 6 again.
Yeah.
And it's like things like that where you're like, where was I when I was 6 and why did I laugh so much? Let's get back to that.
Right.
So we try to be really positive and get you thinking about, just the deeper stuff, not to be surface. Like we can be surface with our friends and sometimes our family, but like there has to be that time and place where you can get deeper into like those real issues. Because we all have them,
yes,
all of us.
Do. Yes,
every counselor has a counselor pretty much, and so we have to take everything that people give us and we have to take it somewhere too. And so
we learned that thing from The Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else you want to shout out?
Yeah. But
my dad who also works out of my office. He's
What's his name?
Carl Barish. He does appraising.
Right, Carl?
He's a broker. So he's pretty busy.
Good.
But yeah, life has been good. And I love doing what I do. Just take the chance. That's what I tell people. The worst that can happen is you have to talk to me for 45 minutes.
Right,
It's not that bad, I promise.
Do you want to say hi to Mom?
Yeah, my mom, dad, my husband, all of them for encouraging me, for helping me get started. I don't know how we all did it, but we did. And my friends who have to put up with me, either laughing or crying. Some months are good when insurances pay you, some are not.
Yeah.
Sticking by me through all of that. All of them that use me for therapy. when we're just hanging out, it's fine.
Yeah.
Still love you guys. But yeah, definitely. Everything's been great. All of our churches who encourage people to come to us and encourage counseling in general.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we love to hear.
Oh, yeah.
We commend you on all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And along with your practice, just you willing to take things without even getting paid for it to get the job done. So that's, I don't know if it's a Chaldean thing or
I don't know.
It's just we like to give more than we receive. But
like some other professionals in my field think I'm crazy, but I've honestly been blessed enough to be able to do that, and I will do it until I can't.
it's kind of like when nobody had money at the store. Sometimes they'd come in, they need to get a sandwich or something. You'd give it to them
exactly.
if you had to. So,
Yeah.
well, it was awesome. It was great having you.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck, and we wish to see even more success and growth come from
Thank you.
your
Thank you.
likes. And
Yeah, you're a very impressive
Yep.
woman.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.